Shouldn't you just kill me and walk away? I gave my heart to the cruel. Now it will not fade again.
Good evening, afternoon, whenever you happen to be listening, and welcome to the Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report.
Sports in black and white.
AFI, A Fire Inside, brings us in with I Hope You Suffer.
And they're throwing me back a little ways as I go ahead and I queue up something else here.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious. The album is Burials. I'm genuinely curious. I think this is early 2000s emo rock.
Yeah, this is when AFI was pretty much going into the peak of their popularity. Like I said, throwing me back into some interesting collegiate high school kind of feels.
I am your host. I am the voice of reason. Allegedly. My name is Harry Broadhurst. Joining me as per usual, he is the DSDO. He is the anchorman. He is the Well, he was the Watkins. More on that later. Tomorrow, more specifically. We'll explain here in a few moments. He is Erik. Oh, go ahead.
All I'm going to say is this as a tease to tomorrow. It'll be a long-ass time before you catch me eating a Belgian waffle.
Those bastards. I think I had them out earlier than you did, but we'll get into that tomorrow when we do the all sports. And yes, there is a reason that they are happening on two separate days this week. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. He's Erik Watkins. I'm Harry Broadhurst, and we start the show the way we always start the show. It's time for Studs and Duds.
Open up the wrong. There we go.
There's our Chiron. All right. I hate giving credit to the enemy, Erik, but sometimes you have to give credit to the enemy.
Well aware.
So you remember what I said when Zach Wilson was drafted a couple of years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the one specific word that NFL fans hate that I used to describe Zach Wilson?
Bust.
Yeah, Zach Wilson's ass got benched this week. And then in the process of Zach Wilson getting benched this week, Mike White came in as the starting quarterback. Now, if the name Mike White sounds familiar, it should. Collegiate starter. Correct me if I'm wrong. Why am I thinking West Virginia?
I don't think it was West Virginia, but I'm going to double check.
Was it Texas, maybe?
USF and then Western Kentucky.
Aha. So South Florida.
Roughly in the neighborhood.
Yes. The point being is Mike White gets the call. And you can tell your career is pretty much over when Mike White outshines you in a single performance. Okay, maybe not career, but something tells me he might not be a Jet much longer.
And as I have said to Jet fans, including Rancid Randy, as long as you've got Mike White and, more importantly, the elite Joe Flacco looking around, yeah, Zach's in a little bit of trouble. But again, maybe he can give me some pointers on going cougar hunting in the offseason.
315 yards for Mike White, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 91.5 QBR as the Jets roll the Chicago Bears 31-10. Okay, so to be fair, the Bears were without Justin Fields. Fields suffered a shoulder injury the prior week, was ruled out of this particular game.
They damn near started the Intercepticon.
He's their backup right now, and it's fucking hilarious to me.
Yeah, that close. Yeah, Trevor Siemian, I think you're safe for whatever that's worth.
I mean, in fairness, Trevor Siemian is like the worst Broncos starting quarterback until the Russell Wilson came along this season.
Please do not remind me.
Ready to ride, Broncos? Because Russell wasn't. Anywho, so my stud for the week in congratulatory fashion, and again, I hate giving credit to the enemy, goes to Mike White, quarterback, New York Football Jets. Mr. Watkins.
You know, I also hate giving credit, not just quite to the enemy, but I am going to announce my stud the best possible way that I can.
Am I going to have to hit the mute button again or take up my headphones?
No, you're safe.
Okay, so no Justin Tucker going on here?
No, remember, he missed. Granted, if he didn't miss, yeah, there would have been a headphone warning.
Oh, by the way, can we talk about Lamar Jackson's breakdown on Twitter afterwards?
I didn't even get a chance to see the tweet before it got deleted. I heard about it, and I'm like...
He told one of the Ravens fans to go eat a dick.
Immature, but I wouldn't call that entirely breakdown.
That was just the end statement of it. Trust me, it's a full tweet that needs to be seen to be believed. Continue.
Oh, sweet Jeebus. Yeah, bad enough that other things weren't going on in Jacksonville, a la Confederate flags, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. You know how I referenced one of my favorite...
Touchdown! Oh, sorry. Thursday Night Football, Bills playing currently, taking on the New England Patriots. Fuck them. And Devin Singletary straight up the middle, 23-7 Buffalo.
As one of my favorite YouTubers, Chiseled Adonis, would call him, Devin, I'm on Bumble because I'm still Singletary. Why do I mention Chiseled Adonis? Well, I'm going to let this clip speak for itself when it comes to my stud, given not just this week, but the past few weeks.
No, I'm a shit. My chain hang down to my head. I'm so
You do realize that it is the rare sighting of the positive primetime Kirk Cousins.
I'm well aware, and that's why I was incredibly...
Did somebody say Kirk Cousins? Did somebody say Kirk Cousins?
Yes.
Fuck Kirk Cousins.
How do you think I feel? Yeah,
that was a hit and run.
The disembodied voice of network standards and practices. He and I had a conversation about pick'ems this week. He is absolutely right. I have to take yet another L. I have to apologize to him personally because I kind of fucked up his flow and cost him a chance to not only win the week, but he wound up in last place, in part because of the rare good primetime Kirk Cousins against New England on Thanksgiving.
The game-winning drive leading Kirk Cousins on primetime against New England.
I said fuck Kirk Cousins.
He has every right to be mad, but as much as it pains me to give him that credit, he is definitely my stud. Oh, yeah. I'm definitely going to need more.
So you're done for the week. I mean, honestly, for me, it's an entire division, but one team specifically. Does anybody want to win the NFC South?
Well, I mean, technically someone does. I just don't know how
No.
bad because,
No, I don't think anyone wants to win it. Someone has to win it.
well, I mean, you have a point there. I mean, technically Tom Brady, even with everything he's got going on, still wants to win it. It's just, offensive coordinator, head coach, 5-6.
Yeah, let's look at how they got to that 5-6. Are you ready for the most devastating words in professional football, Eric? You lost to the fucking Browns.
Oh, not just that. Not just that.
In overtime.
Not just that either.
Squidbit.
And of course,
Looping Squidbit.
yeah, because there were two things that
Hey,
happened this
motherfucker, it
week.
happens to everyone. Now fuck Kirk Cousins.
There were two interesting things, two streaks that ended this week in the National Football League. The first one involves Tom Brady. Did you know that going into that game, when he was leading by 7 points or thereabouts, in the last 2 minutes of regulation, he was 218-0.
Hold
Going
on.
all the way back. Yeah.
Hold on. I actually found something for him. It's an L.
Yeah. First time in his career he's been in the lead in that situation and blew it. We'll talk about the other streak later on.
You know, it's weird. Apparently, as Erik enjoys his wiener. It's weird.
Wait, no.
He's having a glizzy.
Arthur.
No.
Hey, phrase it.
I will have you know this is a homemade quasi-lobster roll using a deliciously grilled brioche bun and some snow leg surimi with cocktail sauce on it. Like I said, in your particular case, death because, seafood allergies.
It looked like a hot dog. Anyways, back to it. So Deshaun Watson, or Deshaun what's his name, as Browns fans have taken to calling him now, makes his return to the NFL this week here. But you got to think that this is a hell of a statement from Jacoby Brissett that maybe Watson shouldn't be playing with this being a lost season as it is. Brissett,
I don't know.
I would argue that Brissett stated his case here and pulled them out of the basement in the division.
I don't think it's necessarily a full-blown lost season.
4-7, 4 games behind Cincinnati, and a loaded AFC wildcard picture.
Even though it's a loaded AFC wildcard picture, if with Deshaun Watson in there, if you can get to week 16, week 17, week 18, not be full-throated loudest voice in the room, but gentle whispers, just above the sweet whispers in the nothings of the ears of the playoff conversation. I think that's still what was all that about? Anyway, all of that, you would think that it wouldn't necessarily be a lost season, and that's why Watson's presence is still going to help. I think with Brissett, you've pretty much peaked at what you're going to see from him.
Very well. We'll see what happens when Watson makes his first start of the season against Houston this Sunday, as Erik talks to Mama Watkins. Unfortunately, we can't move forward because it's his turn to give a dud, so we got to wait for him to come back so he can do so.
Oh, no, I can give an absolute dud and since there's a certain someone who hasn't done a run-in tonight, not to mention this jersey still has particular significance, as we'll talk about later, my dud, to that certain someone's delight, if he decides to come in later, the Ohio State Buckeyes. but not
Oof.
the Ohio State Buckeyes in their entirety. Specifically them in the fourth quarter. You're at home. You're at the shoe. You're in a dogfight. Exactly. Playoff spot on the line, and you have your worst quarter of the season. Look, all due respect to Harbaugh and the boys, hail to the victors. They've always got a soft spot in my heart. People know that. And what turned out to be, from a very close game to a 45-23 dominant win, moving up the Wolverines in the rankings. But to lose the game at home for the first time since 2000, very dud-worthy, and with the knock-on effects, as we'll talk about later, that's terrible timing.
As a matter of fact, we'll talk about it now. Segue! So, that happened.
And let me step away momentarily while you start things off for me.
I can do my best. All right. As mentioned, we talked about the fact that Ohio State got ran at the Big House by Michigan. Well, one of the side effects of that is apparently there are certain people who are calling for Ryan Day's job. Ryan Day, of course, would be the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And now this Ohio State team has lost 2 in a row to Michigan. The first time that's happened since, God, I don't even remember the last time they lost 2 in a row to Michigan. Had to have been under Tressel, or not Tressel, had to have been under John Cooper. But the interesting thing here is, and this is my NFL show that happened, the interesting thing to come out of this here is the fact that one of the names that has been bandied about as the potential new head coach for the Ohio State University is none other than Mike Vrabel. Now, why is this of interest, you may ask? Well, if you follow professional football, you'll know Mike Vrabel is the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. So why would Mike Vrabel leave the Tennessee Titans for the head coaching job at Ohio State? Well, let's think about this here. One, the pay is probably going to be significantly better. And I can say that because a lot of these main D1 FBS schools, the coaching contracts are getting ridiculously high. 2, less pressure. And I say that because Vrabel, being an alum of the Ohio State University, number 3, is going to come in with lowered expectations on him because of what's happened under the last 2 years of the Ryan Day era. Now, for the record, it has not been officially stated that A, Ohio State has talked to Vrabel, or B, that Vrabel would even be interested in the job. However, you can't help but think, what if? What if Mike Vrabel decides to return home? What if we see Mike Vrabel in the scarlet and gray once again, just this time, instead of on the field, standing on the sideline?
And, go ahead.
And what happens to the Tennessee Titans if they suffer the ignominy of losing their head coach to a college team?
And if you think about it like this, with the college coaching landscape, you just had former NFL quarterback Trent Dilfer be hired by University of Alabama, Birmingham, as Skip Holtz, who was in the USFL, decided to stay in the USFL because the rigors of a USFL season, especially with NIL and everything going on, are much easier. You have the situation with Deion Sanders, his name being mentioned for jobs at Cincinnati, Colorado, South Florida, whereas he is at Jackson State right now.
We talked about this. Erik and I obviously talk all week. A lot of it has to do with just general BSing, but we do try to put some semblance of a format together for the show in order to make it as entertaining as possible for you guys. And I stand by what I said to you in our Discord conversation. Deion Sanders is not leaving Jackson State unless it's for the Florida State job.
Normally, I would say yes. I know he's visiting. He's told players and recruits that he's going to be at a school. He did not mention which one. I don't know if that FSU job is going to be available anytime soon, given the season that they've had.
I will say that Mike Norvell has definitely turned a corner down out in Tallahassee this year.
Maybe USF, even though some will say they're a one-win team, full rebuild, etc., etc. I think that would be something to consider. But if you've got the kind of money that some of these schools would have, Cincinnati going into the Big 12, we don't know the situation at Colorado, but we just saw, as part of your fandom, Auburn giving the contract that they did to Hugh Freeze, Lane Kiffin and his extension, making him the fourth SEC coach, or fourth or fifth coach of the SEC or overall, to make $9 million a season.
Former Texas coach Tom Herman just got a new gig as well.
Exactly. Matt Rule going after being fired from the Carolina Panthers.
Nebraska.
Exactly. It's something to say, and I at least think, even with how the Titans are going and that organization and talk of their new stadium, Vrabel's got some bugs in his ear of his own. And the somewhat elephant in the room that just got resolved, you've got an expanded playoff coming in the 2024-25 season. The Rose Bowl agreed to the CFP's demands. Everything is happening ahead of schedule. The wheels are going to turn.
Moved up by a year, yes?
2 years. It was originally slated to begin in 2026 when the current contract ended. The CFP and the powers that be in that organization gave the Rose Bowl a deadline of this past Wednesday to say, hey, if you want in, great, but you're going to potentially have to sacrifice and be a quarterfinal. If you don't, fine, but come contract time, you're out of the rotation. Good luck losing those 9 figures.
I mean,
money wins.
Of course. It's cream, as Naughty by Nature always said.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So actually, the Vrabel story was my college show that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it does kind of cross borders. What's your college show that happened, Erik? Or do you want to save that one given what we're about to get into with it?
I'm going to save that one.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that one last, just because of the sheer level of bullshit surrounding it.
So much for all I'm going to say is so much for it being a great day to be a Florida Gator. But continue.
We no longer claim him. He is cordially, thoroughly, and officially invited to go forth and fornicate with himself.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair.
We'll get more into that. Well, not too far into that, because the details are disturbing in a few moments. What's your NFL show that happened, Erik?
Well,
oh, I bet I know.
Remember how I said I had a clip for my stud?
You've got one for your show that happened as well.
Hey guys, there's been another Antonio Brown thing.
Okay, I said it off air. I'm saying it now. Hey, he sounds like Fat Albert.
Mm-hmm.
But not regular Albert.
Yeah, Albert, you may want to cover your ears a bit later on.
He's got his headphones in. He'll be fine.
Yeah. So we all know. We harken back to the days when we mentioned this a lot. That fateful illegal hit Vontaze Burfict laid out on Antonio Brown. Man hasn't been right since.
I believe the way we phrased it in the past, perhaps a little ill-temperedly, was you could see Burfict knock the CTE into Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I mean, the burgeoning rap career, the blonde mustache, the ignominious nickname of Mr. Big Chest, his antics with the Buccaneers where he decided to leave in grand fashion, giving the audience a free show of his six-pack, doing jumping jacks and other calisthenics in the end zone.
Quick question. Which one's better, that or Vontae Davis saying, deuces, I'm out at halftime?
I actually give him more credit to Vontae Davis because he actually waited until halftime and said, hey, guys, I'm out, and didn't disturb the actual flow of the game.
Fair. Continue. Muted.
So now we have this latest situation. I didn't go into a lot of his run-ins with the law and his different civil suits between the moving truck company and everything else. There's another chapter to add to that one. Now, in certain cultures, especially in the Middle East, throwing a shoe at someone is a very, very grave insult. Ask the 43rd President of the United States how that goes. Go back to the previous conversation. AD made an ass of himself. That's why he's so, well, shall we say, eccentric. Go back to what we said about that hit. Before and after. Split screen, if you will. So, as part of his latest situation,
AB, real quick, the AB that played for the Steelers before that perfect hit, and then the AB we've seen since are two very different people.
Big time. Big time. The AB that played with the Steelers, much more genial, friendlier, marketable. Now the AB that's come on since then, catching a variety of charges, including the latest one. He's got a warrant out for misdemeanor domestic violence stemming from an incident where he threw a shoe at his partner. Yeah, we agree. I've been on record saying the perfect hit fucked him up permanently. We entirely agree.
Yeah, again, I go back to the statement that I made right at the very start of this conversation. Not trying to make light of CWE, but you can definitely, or CTE, sorry. Not trying to make light of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, I believe is the official pronunciation. That's right. I pay attention.
Look at the big brain on this guy right here.
He was close. It's encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy.
Potato.
Tomato AB needs help.
Standards and Practices has to make sure that things get pronounced correctly on this network.
Well, that's why your Standards and Practices, and that's why I'm mainly here to do the math for you when needed. We all play our roles.
And I'm just on air talent, honestly. But anyways, going back to AB thing, yeah, the shoe throw thing, we'll go back to that. Wasn't that with the moving company that he threw a shoe at?
No. The moving company he didn't pay. The throwing of the shoe was at his partner. Hence the whole misdemeanor domestic violence charge.
And more to the point, who throws a shoe?
I mean, again, if it can happen to a former president at a press conference, it can happen to anybody. So
he was in a foreign country. That doesn't count.
No, and that's why I specified throwing a shoe, especially in that country's culture, is considered a grave insult. That's why the reporter did it. So, this supposedly, allegedly, happened on Monday, the 28th. We fast forward to today, the first of the month, and he's on the verge of being arrested for those charges. Why do we say on the verge of being arrested for those charges? As I see something hilarious in the chat there. It's because now there have been conflicting reports about this information. It was initially reported via Twitter that he was in a police standoff. However, the Tampa Police Department has come out and corrected the record and said there is no current active standoff. He is not communicating, and they currently do not know if he is at home. However, as of the time of recording, they are still waiting outside of his residence to go ahead and make the arrest. They are unaware again that if he is home or not, but they do not want to risk police officer safety for a misdemeanor charge.
More to the point, let's be honest here. Do we honestly think Brown is currently in a right mind enough to not try to do something stupid if they try to come in and get him?
I mean, there were reports of him having guns in the home. Those reports have not been completely confirmed.
That's another conversation for an entirely different episode at this point.
We had a similar conversation of that ilk on the most recent episode of Point of Viewer. You can check that out in the Not a Network archives. Yeah.
Twitter.com/Not a Network Pods, YouTube.com by searching for Not a Network Podcast, or by searching specifically for the Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report, Twitch.tv/AWP Podcasts, new handle forthcoming soon. Continue.
Yeah. And the commenter, the Andesian himself, absolutely right. I hope they do a brain biopsy on him as part of his autopsy to see if he has CTE. Not that I'm wishing ill on him or anything. I hope they can figure out why the sudden change of personality and fix it. And unfortunately, because the current standards of testing are inadequate for CTE while a person is still alive,
they won't be able to find out if he had it or not until he passes away.
Exactly. And whenever, may it be a long time off that he does, they do go ahead, they discover something like this and continue to add to the research for it. If this is indeed the case. I have a feeling this is going to be another developing story, and stay tuned for updates on this one.
Yeah, and the problem is, unfortunately, when it comes to a situation like AB's here, I think this becomes a case of, I don't think it's a question of if it's going to end poorly. I think it's a matter of when at this point.
I mean, with his previous kind of statements about wanting to come back into football in different forms and fashions, now the supposed thing with Netflix, why he, as he left the field, he got in a cab and mentioned that. I don't know. I hope this doesn't end absolute worst case scenario, but I don't see it ending too pretty.
All I can say is, in the interest of all of human positivity, we've said this before back when we were under a different name on this show. I genuinely hope that the people closest to him are trying to get him to reach out and get help.
Absolutely.
Because it is crystal clear that he is not the same person he used to be.
Yeah, sadly, his family has to approve the biopsy, autopsy, and all that research. He's hoping that he does sign the paperwork and allows it, and not anytime soon. If I'm legendary, living legend, arena football player, touchdown Eddie Brown, Antonio's father, I am doing whatever I can to nudge him on that path.
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that it's not a question of if, it's a question of how bad is it. Just with the drastic sudden change in personality that we've experienced over the years since, or not, maybe not so much sudden, but the dramatic change in personality that we've seen over the years since the Burfict hit.
Oh, absolutely. Completely agree.
All right, let's move forward. And unfortunately, we have a saying here on the network that we go big or we go Homer. And since our pour one out for the homers is going to be kind of abbreviated this week due to the fact that we have a lot of games to pick in Are You Serious? I was actually going to pose the opportunity to you. Why don't we just pick all 10 games?
I'm down.
All right. We'll pick all 10 conference championship games. All right, so back to what I was saying here. We go big or we go Homer on this particular podcast. And my particular going Homer is a Homer that I wished I didn't have to give, but I do have to give. But honestly, it's not the worst case scenario here, given what happened.
Okay.
Von Miller has found his way to the IR.
Oh.
Okay. So you say, oh, but here's the thing.
I'm
Miller
listening.
jacked up his knee on Thanksgiving Day against the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that when we do pour one out for the homers here in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Miller originally got tested and said that he hoped to be back in a couple of weeks, ironically enough, against the Jets, I believe, next Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
However, the Bills have decided to err on the side of caution here for Miller and have put him on IR, which will see him out for a minimum of 4 games. Tonight against New England, next week against the Jets, the following week against the Dolphins, and then there's one other game that he'll miss. I'll have to look at the schedule in order to find out what it is.
I can actually do that for you right now.
The thing about it is, though, is I'm not opposed to this as I adjust my camera because my knee's starting to hurt. I'm not opposed to this. Let him take the time off right now. Let him rest, recuperate, and fully heal that knee. So that way we can have him ready for another playoff run like he went on last year with the Rams, taking them all the way to the Super Bowl title.
The final game that he would be set to miss as part of the 4-game minimum would be in Chicago against the Bears.
Christmas Day or Christmas Eve.
So his earliest return would be week 17 in Cincinnati.
That is a Monday Night Football game, I believe, the final Monday Night Football game of the year.
You are absolutely correct.
And then we close the season in Buffalo against New England.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm not opposed to him taking the time off now. And hell, I wouldn't even play him against if we need the game against Cincinnati, maybe you consider playing him. If the games against Cincinnati and New England at the end of the season aren't going to matter, then what's the point?
Have him down and have him ready for the playoffs. I think that's a good move.
Yeah, so my thing about it is as a Bills fan, you're kind of concerned because the injuries are starting to pile up, especially on the defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
But we will get Von Miller back before the end of the season. We just got Tre'Davious White back. So there's still plenty of potential for this defense to still reach its maximum potential, especially once all of the primary pieces are healthy.
Yeah, and when you have Epinesa going ahead and slinging around Mac Jones like a damn ragdoll, that's a bit of a boost of confidence. Yeah, you ain't running. Yeah, what the hell kind of move? What the ever living shit?
Looking like a 4th and goal when we come back from the commercial.
I'm sorry. Was that the Bills' defensive line doing their best kind of Benny Hill interpretation?
Yeah. All right, so that was my Von Miller story for my NFL. So that happened. All right.
Okay.
No, you cannot be a part of this week's show. No. All right, we're good.
All right. Now, we're going to go ahead and warn everybody.
Trigger warning.
Now, since I know Standards and Practices is still lurking in the background, we are going to be discussing some sensitive topics. We're going to do our best not to delve too deep, but we go ahead and we may say some things. So, before Standards and Practices comes down here and smacks me upside the head, I am going to say that the following views and opinions expressed may not necessarily reflect those of network ownership and management, and for damn sure, for this segment, viewer and listener discretion is heavily advised.
Cue the graphic. I mean,
now you really. Really?
not that graphic. The other graphic.
No, I didn't do that. I'm going to do this.
Jalen Kitna, redshirt freshman quarterback for the Florida Gators, arrested on possession of child pornography charges.
Now, and this is a little bit of a tie-in with recent updates. You wonder, hey, wait a minute, Kitna. Why does that last name sound familiar?
Because his father is John Kitna, former quarterback in the NFL for, amongst other teams, the Detroit Lions
and Cincinnati Bengals.
Thank you. The scroll is acceptable for this.
Oh,
but we definitely needed the aubergine where it is right now as well. Without going into too many details, authorities have gotten access to Jalen's phone and found material that is not suitable for public consumption. I will not go into specifics. If you must know, the story is on ESPN. We can link it in the show description. Viewer discretion is heavily advised.
Yeah. This one, read at your own risk.
You are a second-generation quarterback on scholarship at a school known for producing quarterbacks. You are a second-generation athlete whose father played in the National Football League for a decade.
And is a current high school football coach on top of that.
You know what this is a primary example of, Eric? Money cannot buy you intelligence.
And your last name don't do shit for you either.
If the story is true, and I hope to God it's not, but if the story is true, throw the goddamn book at him.
Now, the legal system is running its course.
Innocent until proven guilty, hence the if the story is true disclaimer.
Right, and with the latest updates, in Gainesville, Alachua County had his first time in court, released on bond.
$80,000 into his parents' custody.
Right, and
with the stipulation of no contact with minors and no access to the internet.
Correct. And his father, John, as I mentioned, high school coach in Burleson, Texas, said he's got a support system there. They will be monitoring him, keeping an eye on him in Texas. As the next phase pans out, he's got his lawyers. One of them defends, not in this case as a specific case, but dealing with athletes in particular.
I have a problem with this. Would you like to know what my problem with this is, Eric? You're going to release him into his parents' custody. I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
You just mentioned that his father is a high school football coach, which means his father is also probably a high school teacher, because a lot of places require that if you're going to be a coach, you have to be a teacher.
With Texas, we've seen Friday Night Lights, so that is less likely to be the case.
That's
that
fair.
Depends on the individual scholastic district, and if the school is either in the University Interscholastic League, which is public schools, or the Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools. Don't ask how I know these things. I do. Continue.
Here's the more important question for me, though. If his father is a coach slash or a teacher at the high school, then his father is going to be around minorities on a day in, day out basis.
Minority and minors. And that's why they stipulated.
Or minors specifically, yes.
No unsupervised contact with minors.
Okay, so being in the presence of his father, he would be okay.
Yes, I drink and I know things.
All right. That answered my question, because I was going to say, whose brilliant idea was it to leave him around a bunch of high school students? But then you mentioned the unsupervised stipulation there that I had missed, and thus it's okay. All right. So again, innocent until proven guilty and all of that. As we've talked about here, the American legal system will run its course. Unfortunately, affluence can tend to help it run its course. I'll stop it there.
I mean, standards and practices can get on me all they want for what I'm about to say. Affluence, yes, but there's a reason why I, in the past and even recently, have used phrases like, oh, I don't know, the complexion for protection. Thankfully, in this case, this is usually across the board with these details. See, I knew it. I didn't even have to say your name 3 times. I knew it. I'm prepared for this. Go ahead.
Buffalo 24, New England 10 final score, irrelevant to the conversation we are currently having.
I mean, we're still a sports podcast. We can still provide people with, score updates.
9-3. 9-3. 9 and okay, go ahead.
3-game win streak in New England since 92 through 94.
And
I would first like to go on record, since we're having a minor sidebar here, and officially say to your face with the camera on. Am I looking the right way?
You are now.
Fuck Kirk Cousins. Fuck your theory.
Look, I'm sorry.
More often than not, though, he's correct.
No. Statistically, more often than not, I'm correct, because I'm in the lead. I'm in the lead on our pick'ems.
I mean, I took Minnesota.
And Mr. Technicalities over there can't argue that.
Look,
all right. Back to the
10 and 18 in primetime games.
Back to the conversation at hand. We're running long as it is.
All I'm gonna say on this entire situation is, at the end of the day, it's gonna come down to what charges he faces and how many counts of those charges that he ends up facing.
3,
especially given the fact that this wonderful fucking shit had to happen in Florida, which so happens to be my legal area of expertise. Not saying that I'm a lawyer or anything like that. It's going to come down to what he's charged with and how many counts of those charges. Because I can tell you right now, well,
so there are 3 charges. One of them is
the ESPN article. Was it the ESPN? It was either the ESPN article or the Tampa Bay Times article. I don't remember which one now.
The ESPN article stated that there are 3 charges. One is a second-degree felony. The other 2
yeah,
are
okay. So it was the ESPN article. Says that he's facing a potential of 5 charges. The Tampa Bay article, the Tampa Bay Times article, that you shared in our private Discord, Eric, says that he is either going to have possession to intent with to promote child pornography, and um, he also has 2 counts of distribution of child exploitation material and 3 counts of possession of child pornography. All of that would be throwing the literal book at him, right?
Okay, that's a good thing.
But if he didn't do all of that stuff, and I am not saying this to defend anybody, but in a court of law, you have to look at a jury's job and a defense attorney's goal is to make sure that the charges against their client are accurately represented. Right?
Mm-hmm.
A prosecutor's job is to throw as much at a person as possible that could possibly fit the bill in the hopes of getting a conviction.
And or
something.
a potential plea.
That still counts as a conviction.
Yeah, please do count as convictions into conviction records.
2 of the 5 arrests.
The point is, the prosecutor will throw anything and everything that even remotely comes close to fitting to quote O.J. Simpson, if the glove does not fit, you must acquit. The
Johnny
prosecutor's
Cochran,
job.
technically, but we get it.
So what?
Johnny Cochran, technically, but we get it.
It was the O.J. Simpson case, but whatever. It's the football. It's the sports podcast. I'm making a sports reference. I'm trying to be part of the thing here.
Yes, and we have a Bills fan here, so
The prosecutor is going to throw any charge. The state attorney's office is going to throw any charge they can that remotely thinks that they can get the glove to fit on his hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
The defense attorney is going to sit there, and their job is like, wait a minute, no, this is the legal definition of blah. My client didn't do this if you look at the evidence and you look at the facts of the case, right? And I think at the end of the day, and this is honestly, this is what it should be and how it is with the entire legal system, not just this case. But at the end of the day, you have to look at what he eventually ends up, if anything, here, he ends up being convicted of, right? Because, it could be a situation where it is as bad as, they're making it out to be, or it could be a situation where he was sent something or downloaded something he wasn't supposed to, didn't realize it was bad, and now he's going to need to, face lesser consequences for that.
So upon checking,
there's basically there's different models of severity, and not everybody realizes it when it comes to these type of situations, because they just see, oh, child sexual exploitation, throw the fucking book at him, which I agree. But there's a difference between active child sexual exploitation and simply somebody stumbled onto something that they shouldn't have stumbled onto. And what I'm getting, and this is just my personal opinion, what I'm getting based on what I read out of the Tampa Bay article and the ESPN article, and I think is probably what's going to come to light in a courtroom, is that he just stumbled upon to something that he should not have stumbled upon to. And that is my take on the whole situation.
2 of the 5 arresting charges, which still need to be formalized by the state's attorney's office, are second-degree felonies that could result in a prison term of up to 15 years and a fine of up to $10,000. The other 3 charges are third-degree felonies.
Right, which what I'm guessing, based on on the charges that the Tampa Bay article went into in detail, the state attorney's office probably hasn't formally charged him with the 2 counts of distribution of child exploitation material, but they've got him on the 3 counts of possession.
Right, because they're not
If
sure
he's
if
in
he
possession, he's in possession. They can't
it,
really make those go away, right?
it was in his phone. It was found in his phone that the authorities searched. He admitted as much in a conversation with detectives.
But it's going to depend on, what type of possession, because, they could say possession with intent to distribute, which is something you hear more commonly associated with drug cases, but it does apply here too. So something tells me, especially given the fact that the state attorney's office hasn't formally filed the charges or added them into the case of the distribution, makes me think that this is literally based on, they're probably investigating this and finding out, hey, he downloaded something off of a Discord server that he shouldn't have, and yeah.
Speaking of
And
speaking
I
of
hope he's got a good attorney, because I'm going to tell you right now, I found it on the internet. I thought it was legal defense.
He,
Doesn't
again,
usually work.
he's got 2 attorneys. One of them specializes in charges
Athlete
involving
cases.
athlete cases.
I saw
So
that as well.
I was going to say he's got some high-profile attorneys. Yes, I read
Well,
the article.
again, given who the family is, that's not a surprise. And like we said here, affluence tends to lead to these kind of situations disappearing. So we'll have to see what comes out of this.
And I'm going to throw the Tampa Bay article into our chats here, since I'm referencing it.
All right.
And it goes into a little bit more information that the ESPN article is.
We will allow everybody the opportunity to make their own decision as to whether or not they wish to view these articles. Formulate your own opinion. We will keep abreast of the story. We will keep you guys up to date as best as we possibly can with any details going forward. Obviously, this is a relevant story to the show, being as both myself and another member of the network, Jonathan Nielsen, are both avid Florida Gator fans. Nielsen, a Florida graduate. So we will be keeping you guys abreast of the story as more information comes out. It is, however, time that we do need to move on.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Not going to try to be funny, not going to try to be witty. It's time for I'm a Survivor. And so, you know how I mentioned that whole thing about Deshaun Watson taking over with Cleveland this week?
Mm-hmm.
Don't think it was an accident that he got the exact amount of games that he needed to come back against Houston. Because the NFL knows that Deshaun Watson versus Houston, regardless of whatever allegations, accusations, and official course of action was taken against Watson, the NFL knew that Watson versus the Texans was a game that people would be interested in seeing.
Despite the fact that the teams are combined, 5-16-1?
I believe so. The Texans are 1-9-1. The Browns are 4-7.
Mm-hmm.
Give me Cleveland because Houston sucks.
Well, I decided a bit, and I'm like, you know what? Like I even said in our pick'ems and everything else, go big or go homer. And a battle of highly rated talent and a couple of top picks the last few seasons, Give me my Jags to keep the momentum going and getting out of Detroit with the win.
I think I actually picked Jacksonville in that game too.
Mm-hmm. You did.
To be fair, though, let's give credit where... Okay, we might as well do it here. Let's go ahead and segue right into it. Let's pour one out for the homers. Let's segue right into it. Hell of a game-winning drive there by Lawrence. And I got to say, I was impressed with the balls to go for 2 in the victory this past Sunday for Jacksonville as well. A sign of the times, perhaps, under the Doug Peterson era in Jacksonville.
The first time in Jaguars franchise history where we were down in that situation, 7 points inside the final 2 minutes, and have come out for a win, with a win. And again, I admire Doug Peterson. It's an old saying, at home, you go for the dub. Good idea. I was for it, and it worked.
Well, more importantly here, too, I think for this particular circumstance is you're facing a team that is superiorly talented to you as well. So I think that kind of...
all of that, absolutely.
I think that kind of ties into the decision as well. Why potentially extend the game and run the risk of giving Lamar Jackson the ball back, or worse, putting yourself in a position where they could get close enough for Justin Tucker to get a gimme to walk it off in either overtime or at the end of regulation. Go for the win. Go for the chance to take Jackson and Tucker and the running backs. I'm drawing a blank on the kid's name now.
No, it was it Edwards who was also
Gus Edwards.
Yeah, Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards was the one who scored.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, why risk putting the ball in their hands in overtime with a fresh respite off of a break time between the end of the fourth quarter and the start of overtime, when you could go for the kill right then and there?
Absolutely. And with something like that, even though nearly had an opera man moment with another 67-yarder, everything worked out the way that it did. Plus, this is such a big development for Trevor Lawrence himself and his career. We're talking ball in his hands, his first comeback game-winning drive. This is the kind of thing that not only helps for the remainder of this season, but is an immediate springboard when you're going into 2023 and beyond.
Did Etienne get hurt?
Yes.
Okay, because he put up like 0.6 of a point for me, so I figured he had to have gotten hurt.
He did.
Is he okay?
As far as I know, yes. I'm going to have more updates on that situation as we get closer to Sunday, but that was a thing. They were saying a little bit more caution with him as well. So,
all right, so the big news story to come out of your college football season finale, and my condolences on the finish, but the big news story to come out of your college football finale is the fact that Pittsburgh defensive lineman's a fucking idiot.
Now, you see, and like I said earlier, there's a reason why I wore this. You see this number? This is a number 5. This is the number of games we won this season. And as I said on our last show, I would rather not have a bowl game, even with the extra practices and stuff, as you mentioned. Valid point. I would rather not have a bowl game, leave this taste in your mouth, and go ahead and be on the hunt, be hungry, stay hungry for next year. The fact that we're already, with Crystal Ball's magic, getting a lot of key top recruits after the kind of season we've had, this shows. These guys today, they know about the tradition, but they pay attention to that fire. It's like, no, I got to go there and ball out to help them.
Flip the script.
All right. Now, I'm going to say, and I'm going to start with the worst one first. Did I not warn you about the whole situation with Florida and how this could be very sticky?
To be fair, and ridiculousness of what's gone on over the course of the last couple of days aside. Because good grief, the last thing this team needed is the Jalen Kitna story. To be fair, I did say we were probably going to lose to Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
I expected us to be competitive. If you recall, they were my college underdog for Are You Serious? And they did cover. Florida was a 9.5-point dog, and they lost by 7.
Yep.
I think the problem for me is the way they lost. The fact that they were as competitive as they were in that game, because it shows the signs of wasted potential this season. That there are plenty of talented athletes on the University of Florida football team. It just didn't gel together the way that it could have and the way that it potentially should have, especially after the start they got off to, knocking off highly ranked and highly finishing number 11 in the country right now, Utah.
Now, I wanted to ask this, not necessarily to rehash the main part of that story, but this did come up as sort of on-the-field repercussions for next year. With what you've seen with your quarterback, with AR-15, now this, what is going on potentially in the quarterback room? What are the answers? How is Napier going to look at this situation for next year?
The honest answer to that question is if AR-15 is smart, he comes back. Because as strong of an arm as Anthony Richardson has, and the pocket presence that Anthony Richardson has, another year under Billy Napier will do him nothing but good.
Completely agree.
Because Napier runs the kind of offense that NFL teams favor, a more pass-heavy offense. 2, Richardson proved that he was in way over his head at times during the course of this season as well. The Kentucky game comes to mind, and then the ass beating that we took from Missouri as well. There were flashes of brilliance by Richardson, but I think that the hot and cold nature for Anthony, while the arm talent and the ability is there, the extra seasoning would be beneficial to him in the long run of his career. And I don't just say that because I want him to stay for another year. I genuinely think that Richardson is not ready for the NFL.
And I was saying the same thing because everybody looked at Lamar Jackson from when he was coming out of Louisville. Yes, still a first-round pick because of that extra year optionless contract. But the not bad for a running back, run first mentality, everybody knew he would need that extra time to develop. Having that extra time to develop at Florida, given these draft classes, I'm right there with you. He's still got top-end pick, day one potential if he comes back for another year, if not early day 2.
I would say day 2, probably second or third round. I don't think he's a first-round pick. And the reason I say that is just the lack of consistency that we talked about, because he can be he's a Katy Perry quarterback. He's hot and he's cold. That monkey.
It was warranted.
The point being, though, is that you didn't know which Anthony Richardson you were going to get on a game-in, game-out basis this year. I think that if Richardson comes back and can prove that he can play with consistency over the course of a 12-game college football schedule next year, it would be beneficial to him in the long run, especially since with the NFL, he's going to be going from a 12-game schedule to a 17-game schedule, hopefully not immediately, ideally having a year or 2 to develop under an NFL system before going into the lineup.
And we'll definitely see how that goes. But from one set of intrigue to another, and there's been discussions about this, we are heading into the last full weekend, as it were, of the college football season, the penultimate weekend of the regular season.
Conference championship weekend, as we call it.
Exactly. The CFP is looming.
Mm-hmm.
Decision day is Sunday. Everybody's lining up for their bowl projections. And given the way the Big Ten shook out, there's more than subtle, gentle whispers about, especially if Michigan handles business. We'll talk about that momentarily. If they do,
Penn State in the Rose Bowl.
instead of Ohio State,
I don't
because of
see
how
it.
everything ended.
I don't see it, and here's why. Ohio State beat us head to head.
However, record-wise, yes. Head-to-head wise, yes. There's a second part to that argument. A CJ Stroud, a few other big-name players.
For Ohio State, would they play in the Rose Bowl when it won't matter given their NFL draft position? I could see that argument, but you could make the same argument about Penn State as well. Would the quarterback for Penn, Sean Clifford. It took me a second to remember his name. Would he play in the Rose Bowl given the potential for his draft stock? Do I think Clifford's an NFL quarterback? No. But I think that perhaps maybe taking that downtime in order to perhaps get ready for a USFL or an XFL season wouldn't be the worst idea for him.
Given the fact that the XFL going into their first year of version 3.0 and their quarterback list, I would definitely lean more USFL, but at the same time, for someone like Clifford, that extra prestigious game, little bit more NIL,
an opportunity to raise the profile. No, I get it.
Yeah, so I think it would be more likely, and you would have more Penn State players want to play in that Rose Bowl.
Agreed.
Either against Utah or Washington, what have you, than Ohio State. So
I would say it would depend on what happens to Utah in the game against USC in the Pac-12 title game. If Utah is able to beat USC, then we're having an entirely different conversation.
Completely agreed.
Because if Utah beats USC, then I think Utah is in one of the marquee ones. That said, USC wins, and I think it's UW instead of Utah against whomever comes out of the Big Ten for the Rose Bowl.
Exactly, and this is my point. USC wins with where they are in 4th in the CFP rankings. It's basically winning they're in. But Utah all the way down in 11th, a win, and bam, they're the ones heading to Pasadena.
Because that would be the conference champion and 10-3, I believe, for Utah.
10-3, yep.
With a win, because they're 9-3 currently.
Correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on how conference championship weekend plays out, too, because you're going to want to see, like, you got to think that those NY6 bowl games are going to want to match up the most intriguing matchups that they can get out of them as well.
Oh, yeah. And this is why they have decision day, high noon Sunday, all the games, final rankings, everything else. All right, pick.
I have an idea here for what's going to probably happen. I would not be surprised to see Penn State actually go to the Rose Bowl. And the reason I say that is because I wouldn't be surprised to see them in one of the other NY6s do Ohio State Clemson one more time.
Potentially orange? From what I'm hearing and how things are shaking out.
Fiesta and Sugar are the semifinals this year, I believe.
Fiesta and Peach.
Okay, so Atlanta and Tempe.
Mm-hmm.
Or Atlanta and Phoenix.
Atlanta and Glendale, actually.
The former University of Phoenix Stadium. The home of the Cardinals.
Yep, currently State Farm Stadium.
Not
that I've had some dealings with State Farm lately. I may find out about that on Sunday on Point of Viewer.
Like a good neighbor, Aaron Rodgers is benched. It had to happen at least once on this episode. I hadn't gotten a really good one in.
Yeah.
All right, so Optimism as far as Penn State's future. We saw the redshirt freshman that's going to take over for Clifford next year at the end of the game against Michigan State, because the Michigan State game turned into exactly what we figured the Michigan State game would turn into. The problem is as good as times are in State College right now, it's reload in Ann Arbor and Columbus. It is, I would make the argument, it is the best 3-team division in college football. And if the Big Ten goes the way of the other conferences with getting rid of divisions, then that opens up a whole other different can of worms as far as future Big Ten titles go.
And that is the indication from the powers that be at the Big Ten and elsewhere. Once USC and UCLA come in, goodbye divisions.
Because the Big Ten would technically be the Big 16 at that point.
Not to mention shaking up East, West, what have you.
Geographical landscapery. I still think it's stupid for USC and UCLA to move to the Big Ten.
Well, we'll have to see what the final decision from Gavin Newsom and the UC system is on that one.
The Board of Regents.
Yeah, because that's not going away. Yes, one tight.
Got to the mute button just in time for that one. All right. I suppose we move to the NFL now, don't we? So do we go with tonight's game or do we go with hairy-ass Thanksgiving?
I would start with definitely Thanksgiving first.
Do we have to? Because seriously, how the fuck did we almost lose to the goddamn Lions?
Something about the Lions and Thanksgiving being good but not good enough.
I mean, it does fit with their modus operandi, doesn't it?
Pretty much.
So the Lions drive down the field after Buffalo gets the touchdown pass from Allen to, I think it was Davis. But so the Lions drive down the field, and as Allen gets the touchdown pass, I'm not able to watch the game. I'm at a family dinner with my girlfriend and her aunt and her uncle at his extended family. So we're out in a park in the middle of nowhere, South Carolina. Aiken, South Carolina, I believe is where we were. If you're wondering where the hell is that, I was wondering the same thing myself.
I'm sorry, did I hear banjos out of nowhere? Continue.
Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. We're going to turn into some straight-up deliverance around here.
Look, I don't know. If I hear some guy named Puddin talking about if I got a pretty mouth, yeah, that's going to be the end of the show.
You know what might be the scariest part of this conversation is I actually get this reference with Deliverance. Of all movie references for me to get, this is the one. Anyways, so we're following along on the game. My phone's like half dead at this point, so she's got the ESPN app open, and I'm following along with Game Center, and they come down and they kick the field goal with like 22 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
And she says to me, "It looks like you're going to overtime." And I said, "Looks like you don't know Josh Allen." Kansas City only needed 13. Buffalo needed 22. But you know what they say, Eric? It's all about that bass. He's a kicker. And 28-25 later, done, dusted by Felicia's.
And the Bills became the first team.
I saw this stat. Let me, if I may. Since 2016 to win back-to-back games in Ford Field, home of the Lions. Let that sink in, Detroit fans. Sorry, not sorry. Was that the stat you were going with?
You did it perfect.
I couldn't help it. I saw that stat and just busted out laughing when I saw it. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like the Lions to me. But yeah, so then tonight's game, obviously, fun fact, and we can kind of just segue right into it with this here. Erik, by any chance, did you happen to get a chance to check our Are You Serious document for the week?
As a matter of fact, I did, yes.
Would you like to inform the people what my Are You Serious lock of the week was?
Buffalo -4 at New England.
Check. Allow me to assist you with this, Erik. Are you ready?
Mhm.
W plus 10.
Yeah. After the week that you had last week,
Yeah, after
kind of
Harry
needed
asked,
this one.
after Harry asked last Thursday on Thanksgiving against the Lions, it was nice to go punch a division rival square in the mouth. And the good news for the Bills, too, and we'll close with this, Miami plays San Francisco this weekend, which is a very losable game for them. We could come out of this weekend sole possession of first place in the AFC East. We'll talk about it in a few seconds, apparently. Let's go ahead and do the NFL picks first because there's going to be 10 picks for college football because apparently we're idiots.
We're gluttons, as it were.
It do be facts, though.
Yeah, you ain't lying.
All right, so my lock of the week was Buffalo -4 against New England. I'd say that worked out pretty well for me. As I said, WW plus 10. Hold on, I got to pull up the Are You Serious document. My underdog for the week, I take a few seconds and stall for time, is my document. You know, while my document loads, why don't you give us your lock of the week, Erik?
Yeah. As I have said a couple of times this season, both Facebook, Discord, I'm going to say it here. Broncos country, fuck you. I don't like you. I don't trust you. You can let Russ cook and have Gordon Ramsay tell him to shut it down and get the hell out of the kitchen for all I care. Yes, I know the situation with Lamar Jackson, him being a full participant in practice after injury. Yes, I know there's still a little beat up overall. I don't care. Y'all let me down way too many times. Ravens -8.5 at home against Denver.
You mentioned Gordon Ramsay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to combine your love of Gordon Ramsay and my love of pro wrestling. Are you ready? The Broncos offense is so raw, it should air on Monday nights.
Oh, I got to give this one for you because it's a classic.
My underdog for the week isn't exactly a prediction of victory, but more of a case of I think this line is too high. And the reason I think this line is too high is because I feel like the team that I'm picking against here is going to come in with an inflated sense of self-worth after their Thanksgiving Day performance. The Thanksgiving Day performers I am referring to are the Dallas Cowboys. And while I will say Whack-A-Mole tight end is up there for celebration of the year, $10.5 is probably too much against Matt Ryan because Matt Ryan has a history with the Cowboys franchise.
True, but this just in. Wait, yeah, is that correct? Yeah. All right. Yeah, apparently I was just told Jeff Saturday. He finally figured out that he can't save his timeouts for this game. So yes, they will be starting with the proper 3 for the first half of Sunday's contest.
Okay, starting with them and using them are two clearly different things, as we found out last Monday. Because good God, was that some awful clock, man. Man, that should have been my dud. Jeff Saturday's time management on the last drive of the game.
He forgot that it was a Sunday and the clock doesn't stop for first downs.
It was a Monday.
Even worse.
He was 2 days out. So while I don't think the Colts win this game, and I say as much in our NFL predictions, I picked Dallas in our predictions. I think 10.5 is too much. I say 7, maybe 9, but give me the Indianapolis Colts plus 10.5 at the Dallas Cowboys.
All right. You got to hear me out with this one. You and I can agree that with Jimmy G at the helm, San Francisco is a very strong team.
I mean, so far so good.
You and I can agree that both San Francisco and Miami are in pretty tough divisions in divisional races.
Well, yeah, because San Francisco currently has Seattle right on their ass. And then, although they did just get a help from Vegas. Because the overtime winner for Vegas gave San Francisco a half a game lead in the NFC West.
Josh Jacobs, you wonderful, beautiful bastard. Thank you. Anyway, I digress.
Josh Jacobs, go fuck yourself.
Hey, to be fair, you were still in it for the pick'ems for the week until Monday night happened.
I needed an Indianapolis 7-point win. What I got was an Indianapolis loss.
I was the only one on my island going with 2 gloves and Kenny Pickett, and I even felt bad because I'm like, you know what? It's just between me and Harry. He's still on his duck. We're 2/3 of the way through the season. If Indy wins, even if it's just by the 5 points that they need to split the week, I'm not going to be mad. Let him have this one. Then the last 2 minutes happened.
It is what it is, unfortunately. Obviously, I am not having a great week when it comes to not having a great season when it comes to picking NFL games straight up. I'm still doing decently when it comes to against the spread predictions, however.
This is extremely true. Although, granted, our head-to-head against the spread is actually not what I expected at this point of the season.
Significantly closer than usual.
Yes. Now, with that being significantly close, as we're on the subject, Tua is actually doing 2 things. Tyreek Hill, Offensive Player of the Year candidate. Hands down. I think that there is enough there, even with the trip out west. Miami knows what they're doing, what they're capable of. This is another one of those weird in December games to where you think something, but you realize, in the words of the late, great Denny Green, we are who we thought they were. I think Miami is taking this approach to the Niners, and I think because of that, give me the Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins, +4 out west.
This is me purely picking with my heart instead of my head. Give me the San Francisco Niners to whoop that ass.
Again, fair assessment. Very, very fair assessment.
This is just this is my Buffalo Bills fandom coming out, plain and simple. But all right, so we mentioned that this is Conference Championship Saturday coming up here, as it is the accumulation of all the championship games from each of the 10 major conferences in FBS football. Your group of 5 and then your Power 5. We'll start with the group of 5, the American Athletic, Conference USA, the Mountain West, the Sun Belt, and
the MAC?
The Mid-American, thank you. Wow, I forgot the one closest to me.
Yeah, especially because you've got one of the teams closest to you in the game.
Akron, I believe. It's Akron versus what is it? Ball State?
Buffalo.
Oh, huh. So
Yeah.
it's my localist team versus my football team's college little brother.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like the place to start, doesn't it? Because you know what we say here on this show, Eric.
We love ourselves some action. By the way, as we
It's
go into this,
it's
did
it's
you
time.
not
It's time for some action. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
did you not see Conference USA infringing on the Max gimmick with the moving their schedule to midweek games starting next season?
Well, I mean, the MAC mostly runs on Tuesdays as is. So what I could see is maybe the MAC doing Tuesdays and then Conference USA doing Wednesdays. Because
Thereabouts, Wednesday, Thursday.
because you have your ACC game of the week on Thursday usually.
Mm-hmm.
Because that tends to be, for some reason, the ACC likes to go head to head with the NFL, which makes zero sense to me, but to each their own. But yeah, honestly, I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think to the football fan, you put football on 7 days a week, most football fans are going to watch regardless of who's playing.
Yeah, you're not wrong at
So,
all.
so you get college, because I think I read the stat, and I can't specifically remember where I saw this stat. But a couple of weeks ago, when the MAC moved to Tuesday, so like 2 or 3 weeks ago, it started a stretch of 29 straight days with football on television because of the various college games slotted throughout the week, and then obviously Thursday, Sunday, Monday for the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. Okay. Apparently, because I was looking this up because I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. And I noticed that it wasn't right. ESPN has got a little fixing to do because their championship game is incorrect.
It's not Akron versus versus.
No, it is not. It is Toledo versus the Ohio Bobcats.
Okay, so maybe actually, I think maybe Akron and Miami of Ohio might be a makeup game for earlier, or not Miami of Ohio. Akron and Buffalo might be a makeup game from earlier in the season because I think Buffalo is 5-6.
Yep.
And the game needs to be replayed because of Buffalo's bowl eligibility attempt.
Yep. Oh, yes, because right now there's currently not enough bowl eligible teams.
So what would happen is if Buffalo wins, they take the last spot. If Buffalo loses, it goes to Rice.
Yeah, because I think Rice would still get a shot because there's multiple teams at last check. There's 82 games and there was only 79 bowl eligible teams.
I think
Buffalo would be the 80th.
I thought I saw 82 and 81, but I could be wrong.
Okay, if it is 82 and 81, that's fine by me.
Because one of the teams got a waiver. New Mexico got a waiver. Or New Mexico State, sorry.
Right, because as an independent, because they couldn't find a game in time to get their win, and
they ended up playing
against the FCS.
Yeah, they ended up playing an FCS school and finishing 500, 6-6.
Yep, okay. So,
you know who got screwed by all of this? James Madison.
Ineligibility. Blame the length of the transition program. I completely agree.
James Madison went 8-3 this year, has a potential for 9-3 this week, and spent a week inside of the top 25 in their first season in the FBS. They should be eligible for a bowl game.
And I entirely agree.
Anywho, let's go to the let's start with the Mid-American then, shall we? Or do you want to do these chronologically?
It'd be better to do them chronologically, especially since you've got some potential doozies Friday night.
Let's do this.
So, first up, 7:30 Eastern, CBS Sports Network. future home of the San Antonio Brahmas of the XFL, the Alamo Dome, will host the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners and the alma mater of our former boss, the University of North Texas Mean Green.
Also, the alma mater of the goddamn professional Paul Leeser. Are we doing these ATS or are we doing these straight up?
We mentioned, and you mentioned in the Google Doc against the spread. I'm willing to do it against the spread.
So the number is 8.5 to the favor of UTSA here, and I think this is a situation where I don't think that's enough. North Texas has had a solid run towards the end of the season, but UTSA is not only playing for a conference title, they're playing for a conference title in what basically amounts to their home stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is one of those situations where circumstances be damned. Even though North Texas is from, Frisco?
I think farther north than that.
Well, even though North Texas doesn't have that far to travel to San Antonio themselves, like we said, UTSA is basically playing a home game. I'll take the Roadrunners minus 8.5.
I mean, same here. There's a reason why the Roadrunners are 8-0 in conference. I've seen some snippets of their games, and Harris, 27 touchdown passes is no joke. To their credit, yes, North Texas at 6-2, but you could say either too soft or not soft enough. Out of conference schedule, yeah. This is the Roadrunners. It's theirs to lose.
On Saturday, the Mid-American Championship is contested as Toledo takes on Ohio. I believe this game is in Cleveland?
Nope. Ford Field.
Detroit, really?
It's been there even since they had the old Silver Dome. It's been in Detroit for forever.
Well, I mean, I guess there are 3 teams from Michigan inside of the conference as well.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern, Central, Western, none of which did anything this year, but they're there. Toledo taking on Ohio. Ohio are 3-point underdogs despite having a 2-game better record. Toledo at 7-5, Ohio at 9-3. But let's state for the record that Toledo's out of conference schedule was absurd.
Yeah, I give them some credit, but it was a bold strategy as far as their out of conference schedule, and well,
it didn't work out for them, Cotton.
Not at all.
But I do think it set them up perfectly for the MAC schedule, though, as they ended up going, because if I recall correctly, they went 6-2 inside of the conference.
Toledo or Ohio? Ohio?
Toledo.
5-3.
5-3.
5-3.
Okay. Toledo are 3-point favorites. I lean towards the team with the better record. I lean towards the team with momentum. I'm going to take the Bobcats here plus the 3.
I'm going to be honest, especially given the particular divisions. Toledo's division, because I believe they're in the West, kind of beat itself up a little bit, whereas the East, you saw the Bobcats cream rise to the top. So, yeah, Ohio plus 3, I'm willing to take that.
All right, so far we're 2 for 2 on matching.
Let's see how far this goes.
You got the next one.
So for the next group of 5, we are going to the Fun Belt. Coastal Carolina at Troy. A matchup of arguably 2 of the group of 5 Titans outside of UCF and Tulane. I mean, you know how I am about chicken. I'm kind of feeling Le Chanticleer in this one.
I was going to say, I think 8.5 is too much. I think we get a close game here. And this is a Coastal Carolina team that's kind of put itself into the national spotlight over recent years as well, with victories over Power 5 conference teams. Let's not forget, it was just last year that Coastal Carolina beat Kansas at Kansas when Les Miles was still the coach of the Jayhawks.
True. I mean, granted, less miles, but still valid. Still valid.
You could make the argument that Troy State is the best team, or now just Troy, but you could make the argument that Troy is the best school that most football fans have not heard of.
True.
And this goes back to their run with multiple FCS championships as well. The Penguins from YSU have ran into Troy in the postseason several times in the past. And every time, the one thing that's been consistent about them, even from their transition from the FCS to the FBS, is good coaching and solid fundamentals, which I think is underrated inside of the Sun Belt just because of the athletic prowess involved and the way that nobody plays defense. I think Coastal Carolina will have to keep this a low-scoring game to win. I don't think they win, but I do think they cover. I will take Coastal Carolina plus 8.5.
All right. So we are 3 for 3 thus far. So now
I'm going to save the CFP finale for last.
Okay.
So let's go west, young man.
The Smurf turf. Albertsons, I hope to all things they do not merge with Kroger Stadium in Boise. Fresno State, Boise State.
With the Broncos -3. So you know how we talked about with UTSA having what basically amounted to a home game for their conference championship game?
Mm-hmm.
It is a literal home game for Boise State here.
Mm-hmm.
Boise State -3.
With this one, they made a key change at quarterback. Kalen Green over Bachmeyer, everything else. It's worked. It's worked in spades. Sorry to Devontae Adams. Sorry to Derek Carr. Your school ain't going home happy. We're 4 for 4.
The Group of 5 main event, although it technically kicks off at the same time as the Mountain West Championship game does, 4 o'clock Eastern, which is 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock Mountain time.
Mm-hmm.
UCF versus Tulane. Number 22 versus number 18 as the Green Wave take on the Golden Knights. Tulane comes into this game as a 4-point favorite. But you could make the argument that when it comes to the CFP and the Group of 5, the team for the Group of 5 in the CFP is Central Florida.
I want to say yes so bad.
The only other viable contender for that to me would be Cincinnati, given the fact that they just made the CFP.
But honestly, and especially for this year, there's a reason why Cincinnati is going to the Big 12. And I've seen UCS finish towards their season. I know you say Golden Knights. This is a team that, even as Are You Serious, has burned me recently. There's a green wave coming, and I don't think the Knights can stop it. They're going to be partying in Nolans because I think Tulane takes it, they cover, and they're booking themselves a spot in the New Year's Six.
We have our first disagreement. I'm taking Central Florida here. Not only am I taking Central Florida plus the 4, I think the Golden Knights win outright and take that spot in the New Year's Six for themselves. Like I said, when it comes to the college football playoff, UCF has been the darling of the college football playoff for the group of 5 schools.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can make the argument for Boise State because we go back to the Statue of Liberty play against Oklahoma in the early days. You can make the argument for Cincinnati and specifically the success that Cincinnati had last year, but Cincinnati will no longer be a group of 5 team as of next season.
And neither will UCF.
The argument could be made that Boise State might not be a group of 5 team as of next season as well, because the talks are that the Pac-12 are pushing strong for Boise State.
They're pushing strong, but not only has Boise State decided to stay, the Mountain West is going the way of a lot of your Power 5 conferences.
No divisions?
Nope. They are going divisionless starting in 2023. Yeah, different wave, and I'm telling you. No, I can't say trust me on this one because he's going to bring Kirk Cousins back into my face. You'll know what I'm talking about, though.
Just for you, Andesian. Fuck Kirk Cousins. All right, we move forward. Let's move to the Power 5, shall we?
Let's.
It's Friday Night Lights in Los Angeles. Or not Los Angeles. Glendale.
Las Vegas, baby.
Really?
Allegiant Stadium. Really?
They put it in the toilet bowl?
They put it in the toilet bowl.
Huh. USC fights for their playoff life for the first time ever as the number 4 Trojans take on the only team to beat them this season, the number 11 Utah Utes. USC are 2.5-point favorites. But here's the key factor for me. When Utah beat USC earlier in the season, it was in Salt Lake City. I don't think they get the job done on a neutral site.
No matter trust the football expert on as well and crazy theories that are mathematically sound and then disproven normally by again, I'm sorry. 10-18, but as I said, Utes are gonna get flushed right out of the toilet bowl. Thanks in part to the man I said wound up proving me right in circuitous fashion and winning the Heisman. Caleb Williams, your moment, Lincoln Riley's moment. They're taking this one.
How pissed off are they in Norman, Oklahoma right now? A bit of advice for the future, Boomer. Pay your coaches.
Y'all got that NIL money too and everything else. Y'all know what to do.
Jerry's World for the Big 12, yes?
Yes.
Number 10, K-State, who I had in this game.
You did.
Versus number 3, TCU, who nobody in the fucking country had in this game.
No, no. I can't. Yeah, no.
TCU is a 2.5-point favorite. I believe, well, obviously TCU won the head-to-head match earlier in the season. Do you happen to know what the score of that head-to-head match was earlier in the season?
No, I do not.
Going to look it up right now.
I am.
So here's the thing for K-State, because I think this game ends ugly for them. And the reason I say that is with number 5 Ohio State and number 6 Alabama lurking, because we know how much the CFP loves their marquee names. TCU has to send a statement here. A.
It should have paid their coach so they could appreciate wins. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And the quarterback left too.
Spencer Rattler. He's in South Carolina now.
Yeah, and Caleb Williams was at Oklahoma as well. Followed Lincoln Riley to L.A.
They lost both their quarterbacks.
Yes, they did.
Huh. That explains why they played like shit in the non-conference games. Anyways, back to it. Back to K-State and TCU. The problem for K-State in this game is Ohio State at 5. Their only loss is number 2 Michigan. Granted, it was a blowout, but their only loss was number 2 Michigan.
Yep.
Alabama at 6. I don't think Alabama jumps anybody unless they lose.
No.
And just because it's a 2-loss Alabama team that lost to a Tennessee squad that has fallen apart now that Hendon Hooker got hurt, and an LSU squad that decided to completely shoot their load way too early in losing to Texas A&M last week. A 7-loss in a row Texas A&M team, allow me to add to that.
Yeah. Don't remind me about one of those 7.
You weren't one of those 7.
It felt like it.
You were one of their W's. We, however, we beat A&M. I'm just saying. We did. It happened. Anywho, TCU minus 2.5. This could be TCU minus 25, and I'd still have them covering. This game will be over at halftime.
Now, I'm going to say this. That Kansas State game was at home in TCU.
Fort Worth.
38-28.
So reasonably close.
Then West Virginia, Texas Tech. Then a rough patch. The 17-10 slugfest in Austin. The out of nowhere mad dash to get the field goal unit on the field, kick at the gun
Baylor.
in Waco. They fixed that real quick when the team from Ames came to town at Iowa State. 62-14. Sonny Dykes knows what's up. He knows that even if they don't take it all, see, I knew that wicket was coming after all this time. It kind of sucks that it was Craig Brathwaite, but that's for later.
TCU's quarterback, isn't it Slobodan? The USC transfer?
Max Duggan.
Okay.
This is a team, as you said, that's really going to send a message. Knowing that the big names are lurking, knowing that the stakes are high, and pretty much locking in a trip to Glendale, this is going to be another one of those ugly ones. And Dr. Pepper better have the good Fansville commercials in the first half, because you're not going to really need them on that network in the second half. Horned Frogs going away.
Well, luckily for Fox, if I'm not mistaken, big noon kickoff, I do believe.
ABC, as a matter of fact.
Really? Well, luckily for them, the only other conference title game they're up against is the Mid-American, and, well, given the choice. However, they are up against the FCS playoffs, however, and people might choose to tune into that because I think ESPN, the mother networks, the main ESPN networks, both have FCS coverage on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't have FCS coverage, they might have college basketball coverage, which could be just as dangerous too. All right, that moves us forward, and we're going to go. You know what? I'm going to save that one for last.
Okay.
Let's move to the Big Ten. Yeah, so Clemson, North Carolina starts at the same time, so that's good.
Yeah.
Michigan and Purdue. Purdue.
To be fair, this is a Michigan team that struggled against Illinois.
That's fair. They did struggle against Illinois. That's the one where they won like 20 what was it, 27-10? Or 31-10. 31-10, because they were only up at like 17-10 late in the third quarter.
Illinois, try 1917.
Oh, so that was the game-winning field goal. Indiana was the 31-10 final after only leading 17-10 in the third.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, but this is also a Michigan team coming off a drubbing Ohio State in the horseshoe.
Also true.
And this is in Indianapolis, which granted gives slight favor to Purdue, given the fact that they're from Indiana. However, Michigan is a school that travels notoriously well.
Mm-hmm.
And with the opportunity to go back to the college football playoff and put last year's debacle behind them, you know how you do. Well, all I have to say is da 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 da. Hail to the victors. And minus the 17.
I'm going to say this.
You're taking Purdue plus 17, aren't you?
I'm tempted. But,
well,
but at a bare minimum, watch the first half. I don't know the first half line, but if it's anything remotely reasonable, I would take Purdue against the spread in the first half.
Well, yeah, we saw Michigan pull away against Ohio State late.
Ohio State late. Illinois late.
Penn State in the second half.
Penn State in the second half. This is a notoriously slow starting team.
Michigan, Penn State was a 16-14 game at halftime.
Something about the Wolverines are very, very slow out of the blocks. Take Purdue against the spread in the first half. Definitely take Michigan in the second half. And eventually, because I think the Boilermakers are going to fall apart, sorry to all the people in West Lafayette, you're not going to be able to hang at the end, but take what you can get. I'm going to be very tenuous, though, and taking Michigan minus the 17. This is going to be a halfway through the fourth quarter kind of front door cover, potentially.
See, I don't see them having issues with this cover, and the reason I say that is because I think that Harbaugh is going to point to that Indiana game, point to that Illinois game, and say that if you play like you did against them in a game like this, as close to home, so with the crowd in their favor, as Indianapolis will be for Purdue, you can lose this game. And with everything that we've laid out for this season, beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten, compete in the college football playoff, have a shot at a national championship, you guys have an opportunity to convert the second of those 4 goals right here today. Don't blow it. I think Michigan wins, and I think Michigan covers the 17.
Okay.
The ACC championship game sees Clemson taking on North Carolina. I believe this game is at Bank of America Stadium.
Right in Charlotte.
I just drove past that on the way down to South Carolina last week, as a matter of fact. It's a big stadium. Deceptively large. That's what she said.
Well,
Clemson minus 7.5.
Thank you for saving me for that one.
Family show. Clemson wins. Carolina keeps it close. Carolina covers.
You know that Grumpy Cat meme? I hope they both lose.
Yes.
That's how I feel for this game.
Well, you know how we took to calling Broadhurst-Watkins for the first couple of days of the final stages of World Cup group play?
Uh-huh.
I want you to do me a favor.
Okay.
I want you to go back to our college football preview episode.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the ACC championship prediction for our college football preview episode.
Mm-hmm.
By chance, do you remember what my title game prediction was?
Clemson versus North Carolina. Broadhurst-Watkins struck again. I know.
That being said, New Year, same result. Clemson wins the ACC, but I would not be surprised to see Clemson come out and lay an egg in this game and win it close because of the fact that there's going to be that what would be the best way to describe it? That hangover effect because of what happened to them against South Carolina last week, losing to the Gamecocks in the South Carolina shootout.
Mm-hmm. The Palmetto Derby.
Well,
I know it's something else, but that's what I call it.
Well, the point being is that they got Spencer rattled.
Ain't that the truth?
31-30 by South Carolina. So it's all going to depend on how well Sweeney's able to bounce back his boys for this game. I think they do enough to win, but I think Carolina gives them a fight. And I think what is it, 7.5? I think 7.5 is too much.
I'm going to agree and disagree with you on this one. Do I think it's a close game and UNC covers? Absolutely. And you know what? And a certain listener and contributor in Twitch chat knows all too well how I am in terms of chaos. What better way for Mac Brown coming back, all kinds of havoc, taking what everybody thought was going to be Miami's and doing what we all know Miami had no shot at. And yes, I am going to put up the banner. We thrive in the chaos. I'm thriving in it. Give me the Tar Heels to pull off one last upset and give Dabo a little extra something to think about on a long, cold winter in Death Valley.
Would you like to know what Dabo would be thinking about?
Mm-hmm.
He gonna be big salty if that happens.
Mm-hmm.
The question isn't if he confronts an official, it's how many of them does he confront.
And then it's like, oh, well, hey, y'all got any of them coaching jobs anywhere else?
A pity the fool that don't respect the ACC. And yes, I know yours was the Chappelle Show reference. All right. Main event, although technically mid-afternoon event. We go to the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, GA. No? Could have sworn.
Georgia Dome been imploded, son. Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
It's still in Atlanta. The point being is that it's basically a home game for the Bulldogs.
The first of, let's just call it what it is, the first of two.
Oh, yeah, Georgia's definitely winning this game. The question is, are they covering? The number is 17.5. My answer to that second question is no. I think Ugo wins. And it physically pains me to have to say that about the SEC title game because the beef be real between UGA and you and FLA. This is a very, very good Georgia team.
Yeah, see, wait a minute. Mercedes-Benz Arena? Oh,
No, it's definitely the stadium.
yeah, it's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I know he said that to you about everything with the Georgia Dome, and he knows a thing or two about Georgia. So, yeah, Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
The home of the Falcons.
Yes, see? Said, you meant to type stadium.
Well, either way, the point being, this is a very, very good Georgia team.
Mm-hmm.
Stetson Bennett has been arguably as good, if not better, than he was last year.
True.
The problem is Caleb Williams decided to grab college football by the balls out in USC. And you can...
Because of course you are. Man, he even beat me to saying that. Continue.
The point of all of this is longest winning streak in the country right now. What is it at? Something like 20 some odd games?
Yeah. There.
Or
I want to say, I think it's at least 20. I'll have to go back.
Because didn't they lose once last season?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the winning streak's at like 20 right now. It might be 18 or 19, but it's definitely towards that number.
Yep, I'm checking.
I think
their loss. Let me go back. Yeah, so that was that in the championship. So I'll keep going. Continue.
Was it the SEC title game last year that they lost to Bama? It might have been. Because then they avenged it in the national title game.
Mm-hmm.
So then the winning streak is 14.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that is right. They lost to Bama.
41-24 in Atlanta.
Yeah, they lost to Bama in the SEC title game last year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so anyways, this is a very good Georgia team. The problem for 17.5 for Georgia is they're going to be facing a pissed-off LSU team.
True.
Because this is an LSU team that if they had not laid an egg against Texas A&M last week, could be playing for their spot in the college football playoff in this game.
Maybe.
LSU would be 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
And the two losses would be Tennessee, although they did get blown out by Tennessee. But that was when Tennessee still had their Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And the other loss would have been... I honestly don't remember. I'm going to have to look that up.
Their opening week of the season to
Florida State. 21-20 on the missed extra point.
24-23, but yes.
The missed extra point.
Mm-hmm.
So Florida State finished 9-3, I think. And Tennessee ends up 9-3 as well after losing their two of their last three. But so I feel like it's going to be a fired up LSU team. Not enough to win this game. I think Georgia's superiorly talented. But enough where they're able to keep this game closer than maybe a lot of people think they will. I'm going to take Georgia straight up.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say LSU covers 17.5.
Going back to your point, laying the egg against A&M.
Yes.
I don't necessarily know, given not just their opponents, but how their opponents did in quality losses. I don't know if it would have necessarily been high enough for a shot at the playoff with this game. But, nevertheless,
The reason I say it is because if you can beat the unbeatable in Georgia, I don't see there's a way that they couldn't be in. Chaos theory, perhaps. You would probably need either TCU or USC to lose as well.
and this is going towards my point. Just like before, beating the unbeatable, but Georgia with only the one loss to that quality team in the conference championship.
Oh, Georgia would still make it.
And I don't know if necessarily LSU would do enough. Like, as you said, they would need help. But nevertheless, it is a sacred event in Nolans when the Tigers are in the Sugar Bowl. The city knows this. The school knows this. The team knows this. Playing for that Sugar Bowl berth, even Brian Kelly, adopting that Creole accent, knows this. However, what I always say when it comes to Heisman Trophy candidates, it's 3 games. Your marquee game, your rivalry game, and your last game. Kirby Smart is putting that in his head. Stetson, this is why you came back. You want to go back to back, but you want to get that extra hardware? You want to up your value? This right here. I think LSU is going to play them tough for a bit. But I honestly think, knowing they're essentially at home, and then knowing, hey, we can come back end of the month and start running it back, I think they cover. They're going to do enough, and especially with how Alabama ended their season. And Alabama assisted in Kirby Smart what Lane Kiffin wanted to do with Ole Miss this year and already chirping and everything with Hugh Freeze. All of the rumors swirling around Bill O'Brien. Kirby can hang this in his cap. Yeah, I not only beat you for a natty, but I get to go back to back as well, and you're left in the dust. You want to recruit. You want to do this. You want to do that. Kirby knows it's here and now. Dogs are going to take it and run. I see them covering.
Should be a fun Saturday.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And then next week, we'll do our predictions from the Elite Eight going forward for the FCS as well.
Sounds like a plan.
That also reminds me, I say we open it up to the people that are involved with our show regularly, similar to how we do with the NFL picks. Let's open up Bowl Madness to them as well.
Yeah.
Just let them know that the picks have to be in by kickoff for the games there. We'll use like ESPN or whatever to create you use the ESPN website or whatever to create a Bowl Mania prediction group.
Yeah, we'll put it in for everybody. We didn't mention this earlier on purpose, but we've got a Discord. You are welcome. Join it. Join in on all of the different madness.
So normally we would be preparing for the Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report.
Sports in black and white.
All sports edition. However, that will not be the case tonight because tonight's episode of the All Sports edition is being postponed until tomorrow for a very, very specific reason. We currently know 12 of the 16 teams that will be playing in the knockout round of the World Cup. As of tomorrow night at this time, we will know 16 of the 16 teams that are playing in the knockout round of the World Cup. Therefore, it was an executive decision made by myself and Mr. Watkins to delay the show by 1 day in order to present to you the second chance bracket. Or in other words, we done fucked up, AA Ron.
Mutter, Belgium, mutter.
Mutter. Actually, I don't think any of my really far runners are out. Oh, no, that's not true. Germany's gone. Fucking Germany. God damn it.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with that either, but congratulations to the Blue Samurai of Japan.
Indeed. Congratulations. And also, a well-deserved to Morocco as well.
I mean, North Africa, Arabian Gulf, they're right next to each other. I get it.
They had an unfair home field-ish advantage. They were close enough in the conditions that they were used to be able to compete. That's what happened.
If only the actual team with the actual home field advantage. Nope, not bitter.
I warned you in advance that they were going to flame out.
Yeah, you did. At least Saudi Arabia got themselves a whole bunch of Rolls-Royce Phantoms.
To be fair, though, I had Ecuador coming out as the second team in Group A, and Senegal decided to tell both of us to GFY. Now, if Sadio Mane had been cleared, I would have picked Senegal in that spot.
True. Same.
But Mane being out, I figured Senegal was done. The point being is that you can hear more of this conversation and a lot more when we run back the bracket 16-1. Okay, technically 3 because there's a third place game as well. But we run back the bracket for the World Cup and give you our updated predictions for the knockout stages. Spoiler alert, it don't end any better for the U.S. than it did originally. Amongst other stories as well. It's going to be a very soccer-heavy show tomorrow.
Yes, Peyton Manning. Yes, David Beckham. We will use both terms.
It's going to be a very heavy football show tomorrow as well. There you go. Equal opportunity. Oh shit, my computer's about to die, so we should probably put a wrap on this at some point shortly.
Yeah. At HEB, the Eagle, pretty much anywhere. And yes, if you do have any hate mail, I don't imagine why tonight, but feel free to send that to at HEB the Eagle on Twitter or at hebtheeagle@yahoo.com. I am at Squid Sports Head on Twitter. Twitter.com/NotANetworkPods. Yeah, my personal Twitch.tv/AWP Podcasts. Name change forthcoming. YouTube.com. Search for Not a Network Podcast, or specifically for the Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report.
Sports in black and white, but don't search for that.
No, that'll lead you somewhere else. And yes, handle change on YouTube forthcoming as well.
Yeah, what he said. We're back tomorrow night. Most of these same all of these same affiliates. Who are we kidding? As we run it forward from the knockout round for the World Cup, we update the potential sales status of both of our respective Premier League clubs. And apparently, one of Erik's stars decided to throw a hissy fit while over in Qatar and got himself released from his club.
To be fair, he did it before Qatar, and he's going to wind up profiting exponentially. We'll talk about that tomorrow.
Oh, there's one other big story to potentially come out of this World Cup as well. Can you say Lionel Messi to MLS?
Mm-hmm.
Question mark?
Oh, we can do you one better. Yeah, that story that we've been following. Stay tuned.
That one gets dramatic, doggo. He's Eric. I'm Harry. You have been listening and or watching, your choice. We don't care as long as you're enjoying the show. The Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report.
Sports in black and white.
A presentation of the Not a Network Network. Thanks for listening and or watching, everybody. And we'll talk to you guys next week for Raiders and Rams. Really? I can't wait for the return of I Don't Give a Michaels. Bye, everybody.
See you tomorrow.
Thursday night, Eric, I'm telling you.
Yeah. We'll see you.
Deuces.
Thank you for listening to the Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report. Sports in black and white. A presentation of the Not a Network Podcast Network. Available online via most major streaming services.